The Senator in the Republic of Kenya for the county of Busia is Okiya Omtatah. He'll join us in a few minutes as we look into some of these very, very pertinent issues. The murder of Albert Ojwang is still front and center of the discussions that we're having around the country today. It's a representative of very many things happening. It's representative of what justice means. It's representative of what then is the role of the police service that is essentially there to protect its people than actually achieving. And when we deal with issues like extrajudicial killings, when we deal with enforced disappearances, how many have we actually seen? How many have we not seen? And this is representative of that. We'll be discussing that this morning when the good senator gets here, because what we will actually be looking at then is somebody's to answer, who is that? And over the weekend, we did see that there were some more revelations in terms of what is really happening. Albert is still speaking, and his spirit is not resting, and he's telling us a lot. The question is, how willing are we then going to be to actually then pick up on it? Because now, you know what, guys? It's not just a police affair. It's a collective one where Kenyans, far and wide, very interested in this. We saw that his father went home yesterday to then tell people in what is a traditional, what is a Luo tradition, that they must now, even though people know, they must come home and tell them that we've lost our own, and these are the circumstances under which. And the grief that gripped that home, for me, just really threw me back into that place where I was like, you know what, we're dealing with something that didn't need to happen. This was not an accident. This was not a force of nature. This was intended. And to see the grief in that family yesterday, and I said, you know what, here we are again dealing with a situation that didn't need to occur, that unfortunately did.
And you know, the saddest part of this is it's easy sometimes to look at the numbers, look at all the facts, evidence presented or evidence not presented, and we forget there's a human face to this. There's a story that not only affects this one person. Yesterday was we were celebrating World's Father's Day. And you know, Albert's father came to Nairobi with a title deed. Or title certificate. He's going back home with a death certificate.
Terrible swap.
That's not what he would have imagined. And as he's turning to, he's waiting for the authorities to give him closure. And every waking day, there are twists and turns. Like I said earlier, we started with the evidence pointing to this one man, the Deputy Inspector General of Police. Now, we're looking at 4. So with all these twists and turns, there's a father who just wants to know what happened to my son. He wants closure.
Indeed. Okiya Omtatah is a senator for the Republic of Kenya from Busia County, and he's here with us this morning. I see you nodding, Senator. I think I got it right this time, didn't I?
You did.
Good morning.
Morning to you.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
We have a lot to talk about today, and also we heard your not just sentiments but proclamations in terms of what ought to happen, and that we're dealing with a premeditated murder here, and the question is, who ordered the execution of Albert Ojwang? We're getting into those discussions today, coming from an oversight position but also coming from a humanity perspective in terms of what ought to happen. But before we get into that, Dennis is taking us to a country in this region, and he's going to share the proverb, and we'd like to hear your interpretation of it.
And the country we are in is known as the Land of 1,000 Hills. It is home to mountain gorillas, and it is an interesting country because in 2008 it banned the use of plastic bags, and it's being implemented strictly. Know what that country is? Rwanda. And the proverb today, what comes from a neighbor only arrives after the rain has stopped.
A neighbor only arrives when the rain has stopped.
Yes.
That one's a bit difficult to decipher unless you live in the context of the mountain gorillas. Because rain usually is supposed to be a blessing. And usually Well, if it's a stranger who might come during the rain time because he needs some shelter, but a neighbor is basically sharing your conditions. So why would he walk through the rain to come and see you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it, isn't it?
That's it.
So,
You would now know after the rain.
Yes.
Yeah. You have no reason to go through all that trouble of coming to check on you. Yeah. So I think basically it means that you are largely on your own.
Yes.
In difficult times.
Pretty much just don't depend on others during hardships because help might come too late.
Too late,
Indeed.
Be prepared.
Yeah, be prepared. As we go through this, let me say some words that might sound familiar to you, Senator. At 1:35 a.m., CCTV footage from Bagathi Hospital aired by Citizen TV Kenya confirmed Albert Ojwang was already dead. Yet, DCI boss Mohammed Amin claimed he was in a police cell at that exact time. This isn't incompetence, it's premeditated murder, a state-sanctioned execution disguised with forged OB entries, fake medical reports, and a coordinated cover-up. They thought they could silence him quietly. They thought Kenyans wouldn't care. They were wrong. We demand the immediate arrest of all officers involved. And yes, DCI Director Mohammed Amin must go. You don't lie to a nation and walk free. Who ordered this? Who covers up these killings? How many more must die before something changes? We are not pleading, we are demanding. Albert Ojwang's blood cries out for justice. And this time, we will not back down.
Yeah, sadly those words are a summary of what has happened in the recent past. First of all, I join others who are praying for the soul of Albert Ojwang to rest in peace and of similar other victims. Yesterday, during the 11:30 Mass at the Holy Family Basilica, there was a special prayer for him and his family by the church. It was led by the Secretary of the Nuncio. So people are concerned. And also send my condolences to the family and especially the father. You can imagine what he's going through. I had 4 children and I lost one, which was a third-year university student, and up to today I'm not able to come to terms with it, although I've got 3 other surviving children. You can imagine the pain this family is going through for losing the only child. I just can't fathom it. I'm not able to imagine. If I lost one child out of 3 and it still pains me every morning, every day, you've got that burden that you lost a child, there's that void in your life. I just can't imagine. And this was also a breadwinner in the family, not just a child, was a breadwinner in the family. So you can imagine the double tragedy and the only child. It's at a human level, I'm unable to wrap my mind around the grief and agony this couple, this family is going through. And so all I can do is to pray for them and to say that the Almighty God, who overcomes everything, may be able to take charge and control that family and give them a purpose for which to continue living. After I said that, I think that for the first time, the police have been caught with a corpse that they cannot frame, that they cannot stage, that they cannot arrange or create a narrative around. Usually, situations come, people are killed, and you'll see they have put their pistols, they have put there, maybe they say there was hard drugs or there was paraphernalia, like extremist paraphernalia, and all that thing. So we have got a police force that thinks that it has got, it is allowed under the law to kill. And so that summary of events that you have just read, to me, tells me that one thing needs to be done in this country. The police needs to be disbanded. We need to disband the Kenya police, and especially the Kenya Police Service. We need to disband it and reconstruct it from scratch. It is rotten to the core. And the things they do in those cells are terrible. In December, I was arrested. I was put in a cell. The cell, I didn't know. I had been taken to Kigiri. Then in the middle of the night, they transferred me, put me in an isolated cell at Kamkunji. Only when I just began feeling my skin burning, Now, when I left the cells, when I was leaving the cells going to Milimani, one day the police officer approaches me and says, Mheshimiwa, if you are released, please run to the hospital. The cell you are put in was treated with fungus. And it's going to, if you don't go to hospital, it's going to damage you. And my body was in fire. I still have wounds on my body. Even if you check, you see all these things.
What?
I have wounds all over my body. That's what you get in a police cell. So these things of trying to give us, trying to cheat to us that these funny narratives, these are killers. And they're not doing that. They did this thing deliberately. And there's no way this man called Lagat can wash his hands like Pilate. He has got both command responsibility. He's in charge of that force. And given the heinous thing that has happened under his command, that alone is enough for resignation. 2, he is a suspect. And being the commander of the force, if he's a suspect, the decent thing he can do is to step aside and let the investigation be carried out. And then you find this theater of the absurd, which we call IPOA, coming up and saying that if the investigations lead to Lagat, will demand that, or expose Lagat will demand that he steps aside. Basically, what they're telling Lagat that try and do cover up. It's not that the investigation should condemn Lagat before he steps aside. Lagat should step aside until investigations clear him. That's the standard. And we are not negotiating that. And we are going to urge that the young people who are pushing for justice for Lagat do not relent, but insist that we get it properly done.
These gentlemen, Senator, these gentlemen presented themselves to the Senate last week, in the early part of last week. The Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, DCI boss, Mohammed Amin, and they came and said things categorically. This was under the demand of Senate. Senate demanded for their appearance to give their testimony about what had happened, right? They said this. On over the weekend, we saw that, unfortunately, a number of the things that they said then were not true. Now the voices are coming out and they're speaking. I want us to listen to one of the things that IG Douglas Kanja said, and then to come back and then ask the question, upon this realization, who's going to ask that they come back for clarity? Just listening to this.
Probably could be a little bit near. Let me say this. Both of them are government hostels. Both Kenyatta and Bagathi hostel. Maybe for the officers who are taking him to hostel, they made a decision to take him to Bagathi. But both of them are government hostels. And we believe that they have got what it takes to treat a sick person. There was also the question of who interfered with the CCTV cameras at the station. Honorable Speaker, this question is amongst the many questions that the investigating agency who are actually looking who deals with matters criminal activities by police to give us an answer on that one, so that we can actually now be able to take appropriate measures with anyone who interfered with the normal settings of the CCTVs around that station.
We're looking into more of the things that they actually did say during this Senate procedure. This is one of the things we're giving credence to, the fact that somebody tampered with the CCTV settings, but then now we're looking at this video, which we then saw, everybody saw, of what truly the case was. Would there be a resummoning of these individuals to come back to Senate to answer these questions?
Yes, I think a more structured intervention by the Senate is due to occur because the committee, the Committee on Security, which is headed by the Isiolo Senator Dulo, is supposed to host them and to do some proper interrogations, and it will be a more structured intervention than what we had when we had the open floor. Something almost along the lines of what you saw happen in the National Assembly. It was a committee sitting, it was slightly more structured.
Yeah.
And so we are going to see that continue. But what has emerged is enough for Kanja to fall on his sword. First of all, you tell her that this guy bashed himself against the wall in a cell. What kind of acceleration do you need to be able to bash your head and break your skull? What kind of acceleration? A small cell like this? You can't gain the momentum to get those kind of injuries. No, he tells that lie. He apologized in the Senate. He accepted it was a lie. He's giving more lies about this person having been taken when he was alive and whatever and what have you. He is promoting a cover-up. I don't even understand why Kanja is still in office. The guy should also be gone. That's why I was telling you that the police needs to be disbanded. They've killed too many people, they've abducted too many people, and they cannot continue as life is normal. What they are trying to do is to have Mbagathi own the cops. Fortunately, the Mbagathi officers were diligent, and they rejected the attempt to hand over, to have them own the cops. So the cops was given back to the police. And given the circumstances under which this young man was arrested, you can see it. And the killing, there's a very important detail that should not escape anybody's attention in the narrative that was given. I have been arrested 29 times. I've slept in the police cells 29 times. Never have I been given a phone to call my relatives. Usually my relatives and friends have to look for me.
Okay.
The fact that Ojwang was given a phone to call his family, as stated. For me, that's the indicator that the murder was premeditated. So that after that, they could frame him as having committed suicide. But the family, they would have an alibi, say, we even handled this man well, we allowed him to talk to his family, we did whatever. That particular favor is never given a prisoner.
This is interesting because even along this timeline, we did hear from DCI boss Mohammed Amin, and I actually thought about that when we heard it, that he insisted on the fact that somewhere along the way to Nairobi, they stopped in Narok, and he asked for a refreshment, and they offered him one after that. We even got the details of the refreshment, that it was some biscuits and some water and a soda.
Yeah.
Is this normal?
That one for me is standard. Whereby when you're under arrest, some of them are human. They may not want to show that, but that particular aspect for me does not raise my eyebrows.
Okay.
Because that would be standard. The place is long. The man could be hungry, and you're also going to take a drink and what have you. They also have got a requirement to do that, so they could have done that as a standard police procedure. The only concern with that one is why it will be raised.
Yeah.
There's a narrative that is trying to be weaved. There's a rag that's trying to weave that this is what happened. And for me, when you look at that particular detail being pushed out, and that one is a standard police procedure. When you're under detention, you're entitled to a meal.
So you shouldn't even need to talk about it.
Need not talk about it. Yeah. But they are bringing it out to try, and it's part of their washing their hands. But for me, when they now come to the point of saying that we even gave him a telephone, which has not been verified, but if it is true that they gave him a telephone to call his family, then they were now trying to stage the murder. And that's why the narrative of somebody having rushed into a wall in a narrow cell. Police cells are very small. You can't gain the momentum required to inflict those kind of injuries on yourself. And so either Kanja is a total dunderhead, an empty head, tabula rasa, totally with nothing, or he is a dyed-in-the-wool liar who is covering up for a rotten police service. And him should also go. For that, what he has done, he should go. For trying to own the cover-up, or for owning the cover-up. And the other fellow is Amin. Amin must be treated with a lot of caution. Because where some of us sit, we know what he has been up to in terms of, I don't know if you've heard of this unit called the Operation Support Union.
What is that?
Unit. Have you ever heard of the Operation Support Unit? The operation, that is the Operation Support Unit, where we used to have the special service unit, which used to be involved in a lot of extrajudicial killings and what have you. So when Ruto came in, they played as a game that they were disbanding that unit. But they replaced, they created a new unit called the Special Service Unit under the command of Zachary Kiago Kariku, service number 231482-1989147075. This is the squad that has been abducting people in Kenya. That's what our investigations have established. This is the squad that's behind the murder. And what I would want to know, those CID officers that were sent to arrest Ojwang, did they come from this unit? Because if they came from this unit, then Amin is directly complicit in this murder. That's why we need a very, very thorough inquiry that IPOA cannot carry out. Maybe a judicial inquiry or a parliamentary inquiry.
Because naturally, sorry, Dennis, just really quickly to come to you, naturally it would be IPOA who would then be asking the questions that you're asking to say, who and from what unit were these individuals who may or may not have been in the vicinity of the trip from Homa Bay to Nairobi within Central Police Station? IPOA should be the ones who are asking these questions, is it not?
Yes, it should be IPOA, but you saw IPOA. First of all, in the first press conference, you saw my friend Hassan standing shoulder to shoulder with this killer cops. So what was he doing there in that press conference? If he was really an independent investigator, what was he doing there? Number two, you need to ask yourself, how are these people appointed to IPOA, the so-called IPOA, the commissioners, or the leaders of the IPOA? Look at their history. These are people who cannot unearth this problem. I would have been very comfortable with the internal affairs unit of the police, which was more equipped to deal with the police issues. And across the world, usually have police. These uniformed groups are usually policed by fellow armed units. They are not policed by civilians. If you go to the military, you have got the military police. You had a special unit, affairs unit, which after President Ruto came in and the former IG Koome, was deliberately decimated. But this unit had been trained, it was well trained, it was well equipped, and it had been a capacity to go after these fellow officers. And they dismantled that unit, they transferred its top officers and made them kicking upstairs. They gave them big titles outside Nairobi. And the unit is now a shell. It can do nothing. Their budget was cut down. So it is very difficult now to police the Kenya police. When Ruto decided to dismantle the internal affairs unit. And so those are the issues we have. And then another thing, in terms of the command of the police, the tribalization of the command of the police. Like all top police officers in Nairobi stations are under one tribe. You wonder why that could be, why that should be the case.
Senator Omtatah, you've talked about IPOA. I have a couple of questions, but let me just break it down this way, starting with the IPOA. So the Independent Policing Oversight Authority CEO, Elema Alake, stated, and it's reported, explaining the investigations being carried out, and there's something he said, they are following logical sequence. And the reason they haven't started with the complainant, in this case the DIG, Lagat, is that certain facts are already clear. That's what he says. We are not saying we won't investigate the complainant, in this case the DIG. Rather, we are following a specific sequence in how we conduct the investigations.
That's arrant nonsense. They're giving this man, called Lagat, the chance to watch, observe, revise his notes, so that when he goes to make his statement, he has got all the facts he needs and he can rearrange the scene. What should have happened is by now they should have taken a statement from Lagat so that they arrest him before he's benefiting. He's watching TV, he's reading newspapers, he's reading Twitter, he's doing whatever, he's revising his script. When they get to him, he will do a Shakespeare on them. Yeah. So basically what that IG is telling us, that they are giving Lagat the time to jump out of the soup.
And the other issue is, let's establish motive. Albert Ojwang, you talked about the Operation Support Unit attached to DCI. Why? Because this was clearly, the complainant is one person.
Yeah.
The complainant is the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Lagat. So with the heavy deployment and what the IG, Kanja, and Mohammed Amin, the DCI boss, and Mushiri Nyaga, the police service spokesman, all these people coming together, because there's only one complainant, establishing motive. Why are they protecting him?
They are protecting him because of what, and that's a very important question, because there are two sides to this thing. There is who killed Ojwang. We want to punish. Then there's the question, why was Ojwang killed? Because under normal circumstances, somebody like, first or secondly, before I go there, you realize that we don't have, personally I've been looking for that, I don't know if you people in the media have been able to access it, but the offending post.
Yes, it's been looked for quite some.
I've not seen it. So you can see the power with which they went into social media to delete it, and maybe with the help of service providers, they're able to delete this information, because this information must have been weighty. And corruption in the police service is something that's well known. Even right now in Parliament, I've got one statement where I'm pushing payments, insurance payment for police officers who get injured in the work or during service. Hundreds of them, their money has been paid, but this money has never reached these people. So I'm pushing in the Senate to have these poor people compensated. Some of them have died, their families, their kids have nothing, some have been injured, they need help. But so you will see what is happening is that all these people are cycling their wagons to protect each other because they are complicit in this corruption. That's why I'm saying that the command of the National Police Service, the entire command needs to be disbanded and started afresh. So they are circling their wagons to protect one of their own because of the allegations that Ojwang made, which allegations in a normal country should have led to Ojwang being given special protection and being taken a place where he can be debriefed and said, what do you know? And then proper investigation taken. Instead, they go and kill him to cover up the information he had. Then number two, if at all Lagat felt that what Ojwang had said was not true, it was libelous or it was defamatory, he should have followed the law. The police have got absolutely no role to play in matters of defamation. Justice Mumbi Ngugi gave a ruling, which was never challenged in the Court of Appeal or anywhere, where she declared the section of a criminal libel in Kenya to be unconstitutional. So what were the police doing? Pursuing a matter of defamation.
In the first place.
In the first place. What Ojwang was being accused of was not a police issue. Yes. It was a question of Lagat going to his lawyers or calling Ojwang and saying, Mister, if you don't stop, I'm going pursuing you. Yes. Or demanding damages. Go to court to demand damages. But the mere fact that he used the police whom he commands. Remember, he commands. So he commanded his juniors to go after this guy and fix him.
And that's where the problem lies.
That's where the problem is.
All right. Senator for the Republic of Kenya from Busia County, Senator Okiya Omtatah is here with us this morning, and we're asking questions. Two questions. Who killed him and why did they kill him?
Yes, we continue to ask the question, who killed Ojwang and why? And with that, there is the aspect of the Okiya Central who has said, I am not responsible, release the CCTV footage. And why is the CCTV footage at Central Police Station important? Because this is just coming from a point where we saw how CCTV footage played an important role in piecing together the death of MP Were. And here now we're being told the custodians of this CCTV, the police themselves, are losing the footage. And then again, there is the aspect of Central Police Station denied to admit Ojwang in the cell. That also coming up, and one asks the question, if the police were able to do such a stellar job during Were, what is stopping them from doing the same good job in this matter?
I'll begin where you have left off. In the Were case, they clearly were not suspects. Or the police command was not suspect. So it was non-state actors who, maybe with the help of one or two policemen, got into killed Were, and of course the police demonstrated capacity that even surprised me, that they had that kind of capacity to be able to pick a fly out of the mouth, for us, literally speaking, simply literally speaking, figuratively speaking. So, with that capacity, you can see the mere fact, why was a CCTV installed in a police station? What is the work of CCTV? It's to document what goes on in a place, so that if there's any issue, you have got a neutral arbiter. Because the CCTV is a neutral arbiter. He will say this is what happened. So they are eliminating the neutral arbiter so that their biased or their false narrative can have a chance. But they're unfortunate that for them this time around, they've got a snowball's chance in hell. Because as the Baghdad CCTV has done, you see what it has done. It has totally laid bare their lies. And the CCTV from the Central Police Station, I think why it is being hidden in, again, my creative mind, if I may call it creative, is that the senior officers got there. And the man I'm placing in that place is Lagat. Lagat got there. And from what the kind of injuries that Ojwang suffered, they looked so personal. They looked so personal that somebody personally aggrieved and was inflicting this injuries on this guy. From if you look at the reports of the postmortem that came out. So those CCTV have been deleted because Lagat went to Central Police Station and he supervised the murder, and he gave the order that he should, maybe somebody, when he landed the CCTV, he ordered that same to be deleted.
But Senator, I'm puzzled that we seem to we're being made audience to all of these things happening at the same time, and that somebody can actually openly say that I was paid 3,000 shillings to tamper with CCTV, but we are not double clicking on that. We are not asking who paid you the 3,000 shillings. At least that's not coming out in the open. IPOA just seems to be twiddling their thumbs, just kind of saying, okay, well, this information has come to us and give us 10 or 15 days to try and figure it out. Somebody has come out and said, I was paid 3,000 shillings to tamper with the CCTV footage at Central Police Station. But that doesn't strike us as, we're not asking who paid you. We're not making a trail between this spot to the next. I'm wondering, and I think that's one of the answers that you got, that in other cases where we see that there's a fast movement or there's fast traction, that they're not the ones who are in the dock per se. So that would give the reasons as to why they would not act so quickly. But this information is basically hitting us in the face.
Yeah, it is.
Why are we not using it? Or do we truly do not want to find out what happened to Albert?
I think the rot that is being protected, especially the allegations Albert made, which allegations even junior police officers have complained about corruption in the police command. As I've told you, I've got a motion in the Senate to compel the police command to release the money insurance that's paid for their junior officers to go to the junior officers. But to that aside, as you have rightly put it, the investigation is not thorough. The investigation is being mismanaged. And one of the ways of defeating a case is to do shoddy investigations. Because when you get to court, you have just seen two terrorists who were released the other day by the High Court.
Yes.
Because the court said, now, how do I convict? We convict these people when your investigations are so shoddy. So basically, they are deliberately covering up this thing by doing shoddy investigations. The fellow who deleted, the fellow who ordered the thing to be deleted, that alone should be helping us. They should also be telling us that I've taken this CCTV and taken it to data recovery
analysis.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, data recovery centers. We have them in Westlands here. We have deposited and they are recovering that data. Because that deletion by these 3,000 technicians cannot delete the memory of the thing.
Let's assume that everything that happened last week was, like you say, shoddy, and that there's a human intervention, and so the possibility of error then was increased. Here we have technology now over the weekend that's very clearly stating something, and it's countering the testimonials that were given by two key strategic individuals before the Senate and before the National Assembly. Countering it completely. Wouldn't that be enough for these two gentlemen to actually say, you know what, let me just step aside and allow this thing? In other jurisdictions, we would see that people would say, actually, you know what, this is it, and I should actually just step aside and allow this investigation to actually carry on properly. If last week was anything to go by and we push that aside, this video that we see, which counters everything that DCI boss Mohammed Amin and Inspector of Police Douglas Kanja said before these two houses, then was fallacious.
It was, and not just fallacious, it was perjury, because they said it under oath. In the Senate, they were put on oath. They said these things under oath, and because they said it under oath, they were absolutely sure. Not just oath, you even had Amin
go back and talk about his faith.
God say that he's choosing between man and God. Who's fooling who? And so this is where we are, that these people are incapable of doing anything. But the biggest criminal now, after where things have reached, the biggest criminal is one man called William Ruto. He's the chief executive of this country. We cannot be in a situation like this and he's burying his head in the sand like an ostrich. He has the Commissions of Inquiries Act. He should have invoked that act, set up a commission of inquiry under a serious judge, and let these people appear before a judicial commission of inquiry.
Well, he's not so quiet. Yesterday, he basically said he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, he said he's going nowhere. He's not going to hand over power to. Who told you want him to hand over power? We shall just throw him out. Who says we are waiting for him to hand over power? Who fools him like that? When is it done? Does he own a title deed to this country called Kenya? He doesn't. He may own a lot of land, but he doesn't own a title deed to the country called Kenya. So he cannot claim that he cannot hand over power. Uhuru handed over power to him. Kibaki handed over power to Uhuru. Moi handed over power to Kibaki. Who is he? In fact, that thing alone is treasonable and he should be in jail for that. These people have reached a point where they think that we live here, they are massive. We don't. They are civil servants. A president is junior to a citizen. When you become a public official, like I'm a senator now, I'm junior to the citizens who elected me. If I want to be my own boss, I remain a citizen. I don't go into the public service. I don't go to serve the public. So this kind of utterances that they are immune and whatever is, I think, a fool's paradise. He should stop living in a fool's paradise. This country is boiling, and if he doesn't see the writing on the wall the way Mzee Moi did, and did what was necessary to avoid a meltdown, then it's going to hurt us very bad. So that particular statement tells you the impunity with which this country is being run, and with that kind of attitude, you cannot then expect his juniors to own up, because they know that at the end of the day, we are never going to be held accountable for anything. But that one man called William Ruto, where things have reached now, is the one, the buck stops with him. He has the law. Let him use the law, and let him deliver on his mandate, set up a proper commission of inquiry, and let us get to the bottom of this issue.
But Senator, the president said, and he's also waiting for speed investigations from IPOA before the formation of a commission of inquiry. Now, if we go with what is going on with IPOA, they were given 7 days by the Director of Public Prosecutions to complete investigations. Now, those 7 days, to file within those 7 days, the deadline is tomorrow on Tuesday. So we're waiting for the findings. Now, we know when they're taking these witness statements, it's not public. Now, back in the Senate, because you had these three under oath making their statements together with the Interior CS Murkomen, in terms of structured interrogation or probing into this matter, What can the Senate now do? Can the Senate still recall these three back with this new information? Because at the time they were giving their statements, the autopsy report was barely out, and we didn't have all these new facts. Now, with what we currently have, including what we saw in the CCTV, can the Senate still recall these three and again, under oath, give statements on the current state or status of investigations, regardless of what IPOA is doing?
Yes, I think that's what the Senate is going to do, because, as I said earlier, there is a committee, the Senate Committee on Security, to which the statement by Senator Eddie Okech was referred. I'm sure when they begin their sittings, they're going to summon them, because they have to report back. Once they're given that mandate, they have to report back. So they'll summon them and they'll be able to interrogate the issues and then report back. But the other things are capacity questions. The Senate is not equipped to investigate crime, especially cover-up of crime. So we may be able to unearth some information like the inconsistencies in the narratives and what have you, but which as time goes, especially when Lagat now eventually maybe breaks his silence, he will have had enough time to script a narrative that covers all the loopholes. And that's what is being given. So what would require is that there should be some capacity for crime investigation, assisting whatever committee, and it should be a public inquiry, whatever committee will be doing the investigations, so that the various areas can be covered. Because you need proper knowledge of, first of all, the police standing orders, to be able to understand what the do's and don'ts of the police, and if there are any breaches, why these things happened. You need to have people who are familiar with the crimes in preservation and things like those to be able to come in. As we have discussed about the CCTVs, we need to have those cameras, their hard disks, recovered and taken to people with the technology to recover deleted data, so that you can know what exactly transpired. So it's a fairly complex issue. It's emotional. People want justice quick. But we are getting to a place, given the level of cover-up, we need that this might be something that needs to be done very, very well, because we want these people at the top to own up. And as I was saying, that time I was telling you, the guy whose serial number he gave, his police service number he gave, this guy was born sometime in 1965. He's supposed to be on terminal leave. About 1,000 officers who are in his age group have gone on terminal leave. He was retained. He has been given an extension of 2 years to continue running this murder squad that Amin set up. And so we are not going to be out of the woods unless very, very radical action is taken. We need a radical surgery of the police command to get rid of these cobwebs and to get rid of these old habits, so that the promise of the new constitution can be realized. Even so, the demo we had in December over the abductions, we notified the police. We were peaceful and we were sitting down. We had no weapons. They came and rained tear gas on us. They forcefully broke up the sit-in. We were not even interfering with traffic, because we were sitting on between next to that Aga Khan walkway, which is not a motorized traffic. We were not interfering with any movement, totally complying with the book. But this Talam guy came in with goons, harassed us, and eventually arrested us and charged us, and was unable even to draw up a charge sheet after producing us in court. So we were told to go back home because there was no charge sheet. So this kind of behavior by police is the one that results in this kind of deaths, whereby nobody can be held accountable. There's total impunity. And that's why I think with the murder of Ojwang, the least we can do, for me, is to disband the police command.
that's where you started, and it looks like that's where we end this morning, at least for this morning.
Yeah.
And the importance of us to continue to have this conversation means that we do an injustice if we keep silent. And that's why these conversations are important. It'll be interesting to see what the next couple of days have in store. IPOA is then going to wait probably until tomorrow before they get us any new information. But we want to thank you very much, Senator, for being here this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.